Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Nice. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for extending this invitation to us. It's always a joy for us to go out there and interact with the leaders of tomorrow, because that's what all of you are. So the first thing I'd like us to explore is what you should do if you want to study in the US, and particularly because most of you are in high school. We will look at the undergraduate application process. So, when you finally completed your KCSE and you receive that result, it will be time for you to select universities, local universities, that you'd like to attend. Some of you will be interested in going to the University of Nairobi. Others may be interested in Kenyatta University, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and many others. There are so many good institutions in our country. So when that time comes and you have your results and you've met the cutoff, you'll be directed to a website that's run by KUCCPS, the government organization that deals with placement of students through universities. And what will happen is that you will be applying to a course, okay? And the only factor that will be considered will be your KCSE. Now, things work a little differently in the United States. So it's not just about your academic profile. So don't get me wrong, it's important to have an A in your KCSE, an A minus. But that's not the only thing that's going to get you in, because the process is holistic. So what will constitute an application? There will be letters of recommendation, which will be submitted by people who know you on a professional level. So this is a good time to talk to your teachers and be nice to them, so that when the time comes, they'll have good things to say about you. So there'll be letters of recommendation. Most institutions will require up to 3. So the first is written by your counselor or the teacher that's responsible for guidance and counseling. And then there are 2 that are written by subject teachers. So you could pick one from your math teacher and another from your English teacher, or maybe someone who taught you history, or maybe a science. So letters of recommendation. The second thing, essays. Who are you? Where do you come from? What have you achieved? And what do you hope to achieve? Okay? So essays are a platform for you to tell your story. And there are 2 types of essays. The first is the common application essay or the coalition application essay, depending on which system that you use. So in about 650 words, you may be required to respond to a prompt like, some students have this is just an example, you don't have to note this down. Some students have a background, identity, talent, or interest that is so meaningful, they believe that the application would be incomplete without mentioning it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. Others may ask you to reflect on a time when you encountered a challenge. What did you learn from that challenge? Okay. So those are some of the essays you may be required to respond to. The other category of essay are the supplementary essays, or the statements of purpose. So these are specific to the school to which you're applying. So an institution may be interested in knowing why you want to be part of their community. Do they have particular programs or offerings that would meet your intellectual needs? Do they have particular programs that would empower you to achieve your goals? Such essays are also used as a measure of interest. So a school may want to gauge how much research you've done on them, so they may require you to respond to a prompt. So those are supplementary essays. The second thing is, rather the third thing, we talked about essays and letters of recommendation. So the third thing that will constitute an application are the standardized tests. So at undergraduate level, we are talking about the SAT, SAT, ACT, and the SAT subject tests. So these are tests that you register for online. You select a test center, that's where you want to take the test. You select a test date, that's when you want to take the test. and then you make a payment online. So when that happens, when that happens, you submit your application. So an institution may say that the application deadline is on, say, the 1st of November. Then that means that they expect you to have sent in every component of your application by that particular day. So it's up to you to plan accordingly. So that was me giving you a sense of what is required as you apply to universities in the US. So now, how do you start the process? The first thing you do is you research your options. Okay? So it is at this stage that you determine where you want to study and what you want to study. It is also at this stage that you determine whether you'd require financial assistance to be able to cover the total cost of attendance. Because attending a university in the US can be very expensive. There are figures as high as $80,000 a year. That's about 8 million shillings. So for most of us international students, we would not be able to attend without financial assistance. Okay? So, yes, attending a university in the US is expensive. But the good news is, virtually every institution provides some kind of financial assistance. But what we look at as international students, and you're an international student if you're not a US citizen or a permanent resident, what we look at is the level of assistance that they provide, right? Because a scholarship to the tune of, say, $10,000 may sound impressive, right? Until you look at the fee structure and you realize that you need to contribute a figure north of $70,000. So there are specific institutions that will give you generous financial assistance and make it possible for you to be part of their community. So financial aid is awarded either on the basis of need or merit. If it's merit-based, then this is assistance that's given in recognition of either academic or extracurricular achievement. So that is what we call a scholarship around here in this part of the world, a scholarship. Scholarships constitute merit-based assistance. So you may get a scholarship if you graduated at the top of your class, if you are in the top decile of SAT test takers, or if you've achieved something beyond class. That's why I talked about extracurricular achievement. The other type of financial assistance is that which is given on the basis of need. So need-based assistance is tailored to your family's financial situation. So what will happen is such institutions will ask for information, financial details. So there'll be an online questionnaire that you'll have to fill out with your parents or your guardians. You answer questions such as how much you make every year, how much you hold in savings. There may be some pretty intrusive questions too, like whether you own your primary residence, if it is rental, how much you pay every month. How much of your medical expenses were not covered by health insurance. Then they use this information to get a sense of how much money you'd be able to contribute. So there are institutions that are committed to meeting 100% of your demonstrated need. So that means that once you furnish them or provide them with this information, they determine how much you'd be able to contribute. And at times, that figure could be zero. So if they look at the information that you've provided and they determine that there's a deficit, so you'd not be able to contribute to the entire cost of attendance, they take care of that deficit. They meet 100% of your need. So like I said, it depends on how much you have as a family, right? I have a friend who's attending a university in the Ivy League, and the total cost of attendance is $80,000, 8 million shillings every year, right? But the school determined that he'd only be able to contribute $50. That's 5,000 shillings. So guess what? That's what his family is paying, 5,000 shillings. So the school has given him more than 7.9 million shillings, right? Okay. So there's a lot of money out there. But now here's the thing. Because of the kind of resources that are involved in extending such a commitment to people like us, international students, institutions that provide this kind of assistance tend to be very competitive. They're very competitive. So you have to be really good. So you need to research your options, and your options are dependent on your interests. So let me tell you what I'd do if I were you. Like, for example, I'll be going to study political science. So what I did was that I went to Google and I looked up institutions that have the best political science programs, right? I got a list of around 50. So I took them down. I noted those 50 schools. Then I visited each of their websites to determine, first of all, if they have financial aid for international students. So I suggest that you do the same. So by now, you should have a sense of what you want to study. And even if you don't, then you shouldn't worry, because you apply for admission, not to a course. So there are people who do not indicate their intended field of study. So you can apply as undecided. That's also a factor. But if you've already made a decision, you can go online, look for institutions that have the best programs in that particular department, then visit their websites to find out if they have financial aid for international students. Okay? So that's on researching your options. The second thing is financing your studies, which I've already explained. There's need-based assistance and there's merit-based assistance. The third thing is completing your application. And the fourth thing is applying for a visa and maybe preparing for your departure. Now, my presentation would be incomplete if I do not talk about the Education USA Scholars Program. So I am an Education USA scholar. Every year, the United States Embassy recruits a class of around 40 students who have scored at least an A- as their mean grade in the KCSE, with at least an A- in both English and math. These people become part of a program to prepare them for the US college application process. So when I talk about the SAT, the ACT, the SAT subject tests, essay writing, and all other components and parts of this application process, that is covered by the United States Embassy in Kenya. Okay. We also have representatives from universities in the US coming over to have information sessions with these students. So you actually get to meet the people who get to decide whether you get in or you stay out, people who read your applications. If you are interested in becoming part of this program, I suggest that you work very hard in school, and the next cycle will be open next year. Yeah. So that was all I had for you today. Thank you so much for having us.